I'm back. So with case studies, you gather a large amount of information on a small number, either a single client or a single subject, or a number of a small number of related subjects. Remember, with case studies, we can't draw conclusions from them because they are so small. We can't draw general conclusions for the population. It is possible, however, we might be able to come up with some conclusions that might apply to the group. What do I mean by that? What if we're studying something that has to do with groups of epileptic people, for example, as a condition? Maybe what we could do is to generalize to the population of people with epilepsy. It's a possibility. The other thing that case studies can do for us is to give us ideas for research. That maybe we come across something, or research as in an experiment, rather. Maybe we come across something that we suspect there might be a cause and effect relationship for. Well, what we can do then is design an experiment based upon our results. This is also largely true of correlational studies. A correlational study is nothing more than it says. It correlates two pieces of information. What I've warned you about, and what is always a problem, and you always need to be aware of this for the rest of your lives, not just for psychology, always be suspect as soon as you open a newspaper and the newspaper says, oh, new study finds that saccharin causes cancer, or whatever it might be. There's the possibility that it is indeed an experiment and has come to that conclusion. But more often than not, in the non-scientific press, what you're going to find is a problem. Many times, the reporters are not scientifically trained, and they receive a correlational study, and they read a correlational study that, using the silly example I just came up with, which there was some research about saccharin and cancer a few years back, but then it goes back and forth. But anyway, what they might have picked up and gotten their hands on is actually a study that correlated high levels of saccharin and an increased risk of cancer. A correlational study can never then lead to the conclusion that one causes the other. For one thing, we don't know which way the relationship could go. It could go that cancer made people eat more saccharin. The other thing that it can't do is, okay, I only have two fingers here, but okay, we're looking at these two conditions. There could be a third thing coming in that we didn't look at in a correlational study. So correlations cannot lead to a conclusion of cause and effect. However, correlations are very good and many times the source of further research to design an experiment to see, okay, well, let's feed rats tons of saccharin and see if they come up with cancer at a higher rate or something like that. So correlational studies have their value because, for one thing, I mean, we sometimes do just need to see something correlated. Correlational studies obviously are much easier also because you're not setting up the laboratory experiment. And I just remembered what the other thing was. Let me back up a minute. Laboratory experiment, ecological validity. I even said it before and I didn't talk more about it. Ecological validity is a problem in a laboratory experiment because ecological validity means that the problem with ecological validity means that when we do whatever we're doing in a lab setting, it is not real life. It's not what we do every day. We don't, the one that I always like to use is the Dementon-Clayton because it's the most obvious. When we go to sleep every night, we don't go to some other place that's not our bedroom. We don't go and hook up little things all over our head. We don't, get awakened in the middle of the night by a doorbell or whatever that was. That it's not a natural setting, so it can affect the results. On the flip side of ecological validity, though, one of the things that is good about a lab experiment is we do control outside forces. Like I was just talking about with correlational studies, you could have a third cause come in. Generally, experiments try and remove that as a possibility. So that was the other thing I wanted to say about experiments. But correlational studies are good, necessary, so many times inform us on doing future research. Some of the other, I'm looking here at the IB syllabus, one of the things they're talking about is double-blind trials. Now remember what a double-blind trial does, or a double-blind experiment. The reason we have these is because we don't want, inadvertently, we don't want to affect the results. The way a double-blind trial works is, okay, I'm going to use me as the experimenter. I'm running the experiment. Generally, this is done with medications, when they're trying a new medication. So, let's say we've come up with a new medication that will lower blood pressure. Okay, so we have our control group and we have our experimental group. What we don't want to inadvertently happen is whoever's administering the medicine, it wouldn't be me because it would be a huge clinical trial, so I would have people doing it for me. What we don't want to happen is the people who are giving the real medicine to inadvertently treat the patients differently than the ones who are getting the fake medicine. Because when we have a clinical trial of a new medication, there's always a placebo, a control group with a placebo, where the pill looks exactly like the real pill, and but is a harmless substance which has no physiological effects at all. So what we do, so first off, the pill looks anonymous, so the person wouldn't know anyway which was the real pill or not. Secondly, though, on top of it, then the whoever is administering the medication in the experiment, nurses, doctors, whoever it might be, doesn't know which patient is in which group. I, as the person running the experiment, know it, obviously. I have to know who has the real medicine, who's getting the placebo. But the actual people carrying out the physical giving of the pills don't know. And that's the double-blind part. The medication is anonymous, so you don't know, they don't know which pill it is, and then on top of it, they don't know which patient or client is getting which medication. Again, professionals would not try to skew the results, but this is just a way of assuring that it doesn't accidentally creep in. Let's see, also, two other things on here they have are interviews and questionnaires. Interviews, remember, there are a variety of ways to do interviews and questionnaires. Questionnaires, let me just run through, those are the simplest things. Those are the ones, there's not a lot to say about them, they're pretty self-explanatory. They can have Likert scales on them. Remember what a Likert scale is. I like this on a scale of 1 to 10. 1, I don't like it. 10, love it. And somewhere in between. Or they can be fill in the blanks. That is hard to, if you're looking for quantitative data, that's hard to do if you leave open-ended questions because unless you then later come up with the categories based on the answers, that can be hard to do. But if you're asking somebody how they feel and 100 subjects put down 100 different words, that doesn't really help us too much. So that's why sometimes questionnaires will be multiple choice, Likert scales, things like that, where we can compare the results across. The other thing that's mentioned on here are interviews. Interviews come in a variety of different forms. Obviously, it's usually one-on-one, but interviews can be either unstructured, semi-structured, or structured. This kind of gets into a little bit of group 3, but it can't hurt you, even if you're not a higher level student, can't hurt you to know about these different forms. When we're talking about an interview, and we're about to wrap up here, I think I'm going to run out of time on this and we'll probably go to one more little session. But anyway, with the interviews, you have like I said, structured, unstructured, and semi-structured. A structured interview has a series of questions that the interviewer follows, regardless of the person's answers on where they go. So the advantage to this is it makes results comparable across many different clients or subjects. So that, you ask a person, what is your favorite color? What is your favorite animal? And regardless of what they say, if you ask them, what is your favorite color? And they say, daisies. And then you say, what is your favorite animal? And they say, blue. You still continue on. You don't question what they're talking about and why the answer doesn't make sense. As opposed to a semi-structured, gives you a list of questions, but then also leaves open the possibility for follow-up. So that if you were talking, like the example I just gave, you would say to the person, I'm sorry, I said, what is your favorite color? and if they repeat it again, then you could follow up with a question such as,